the last 4 years, the electronics retail chain Croma has found itself in a rather unique predicament. On one hand, it is Tata Digital's most valuable asset. In some senses, it's crown jewel. After all, it brought in more than half of its total sales just last year, and its revenue, meanwhile, crossed 18,000 crore rupees. But at the same time, it's also Tata Digital's favorite lab rat. Just ask the company's marketing team. My colleague, the Ken reporter Debanjali Biswa, spoke to at least 3 members of the team earlier this month, and they all agreed. If you ask them what Croma stands for today, they just would not be able to tell you. You see, ever since it was brought under Tata Digital's fold back in 2021, the pressure was on to grow. But the approach has been to throw things at the wall and desperately hope that something sticks. The strategy keeps skipping from one thing to the next. So one day it is to compete with Amazon. The next they'll go all out to premiumize. Then the goal will be building brand presence by sponsoring events. And then suddenly someone will step in and say, hey, wait, hold on. We have to reduce budgets. For someone working at Croma, it's becoming very difficult to keep track. The latest experiment took place in late March. Croma's digital marketing team was informed that it was their last day at the company. And no, they weren't being laid off. Instead, they were told that they would now be working directly out of Tata Digital. As usual, Croma was the first port of call. The bigger plan here is to streamline digital marketing across all of Tata Digital's brands, including the likes of 1mg, Click, Big Basket, and New. But in the process, the cracks in Croma's business are in full display. After hitting profitability in FY19, it witnessed a steep drop to a little over 980 crore rupees in losses in FY24. But the silver lining in all of this is its massive 20 million strong customer base. The real opportunity lies in tapping that customer base. But the catch? No one seems to know how to make that happen. Welcome to Daybreak, a business podcast from the Ken. I'm your host Rahel Philippos, and I don't chase the news cycle. Instead, every day of the week, my colleague Snigdha Sharma and I will come to you with one business story that is worth understanding and worth your time. Today is Monday, the 30th of June. Croma is in a bit of a fix. Losses have been mounting, so the pressure is on to turn profitable, or at least to break even, and fast. Shifting the digital marketing team under Tata Digital is a step in that direction. Currently, both companies have separate teams driving traffic to Croma's online store. Combining them would help streamline advertising budgets. Now, consolidation has been a recurring theme in Tata Digital's strategy. I'm sure you remember the super app New. Back in 2022, all Tata Digital brands, Croma, Big Basket, and 1mg were onboarded onto this super app. But it ended up backfiring in a way. It became difficult to come to a clear consensus on which brand should get the most visibility and when. It became a touchy subject. Integrating them was also a tough sell. People in the Tata Digital ecosystem worry that the latest move with the marketing team may misfire in that same way. There are also doubts about ecosystem migration. Croma has invested crores in tie-ups with SEO, automation, and advertising agencies, all of whom are now left in the lurch. How will this matured ecosystem uproot itself and migrate to Tata Digital? Many are considering exiting these partnerships altogether. And then, to make matters worse, in the middle of the transition, Tata Digital's chief executive Naveen Tahilyani stepped down in May. Everyone was left wondering, who's going to steer the ship now? Confusion seems to be a running theme at Croma. One person from Croma's buying team said the smartphone team's targets have skyrocketed since last year. At the same time, online sales, which primarily comprise smartphones, tanked by 25% in 2024. That, an analyst told the Ken, was a direct consequence of moving away from Croma's earlier Amazon-level discounting to avoid cash burn. One buying team member jokingly said that the management expects Diwali-level sales every single day. Except no one tells them how to achieve these impossible targets. All of this is the product of a much deeper issue, a full blown identity crisis. Look no further than the competition. On one hand, there is Vijay Sales, which offers the best prices and aggressive sales. And on the other is Reliance Digital, which banks on its massive nationwide presence. And Croma sits somewhere in the middle, not really winning in either of those two departments. That's not a very good place to be. It wasn't always like this. Up until 2020, 2021, things were structured and organized. But then company strategies started flip flopping. Ideas are picked up as fast as they are dropped. In 2022, Croma tried launching dark stores, according to two former employees. The idea was customers would video call experts in real time to demo products. Croma was also aspiring to host customer events in these spaces. A few locations in Bangalore had been finalized for this also. But then they realized that the sites were in inaccessible areas, one of which was a near abandoned mall with poor footfall. Despite the investment, the plan was shelved. And that's not a one off. There have been several such projects deserted midway. For instance, at one point, the goal was to expand warehouses aggressively. But eventually, they realized they don't need so many and then ended up shutting them down. Then a transport management system was implemented, but that didn't work out either and was eventually scrapped. Such experiments also apply to employees. Internal roles and reporting hierarchies are very frequently rejigged. Debanjali spoke to multiple employees who ended up feeling stagnant in the company. They stopped seeing growth. This even reaches the top rungs of the management. Leaders with experience in analytics and merchandising were heading operations, while others overseeing tech came from business management backgrounds. More on that in the next segment. Before Tata Digital entered the picture, Croma had only one goal: to get offline retail right. Sure, it was still loss making at the time. Even its occasional profits were too minor to make noise about. But the leadership was still able to run Croma like its own business. And in many ways, it paid off. A former top management employee we spoke to shared how business heads didn't have to wait for approval from the board. They were able to revamp pricing, optimize for footfall, even pioneered one of the first low-cost EMI options with the non-bank Bajaj Finance. Their price match scheme enabled Croma to be competitive with e-commerce giants like Amazon and Flipkart. In the 3 years between FY16 and FY19, the company had turned a 196 crore loss into a 197 crore profit. Newly launched stores were turning profitable within a year. Morale was at an all-time high. But this just wasn't good enough. A big reason for that was the leadership. They were all accomplished in their own right, sure. But most came from IT or financial services backgrounds. And that was believed to be the effect of TCS's influence over Tata Sons ever since Natarajan Chandrasekaran became the group chairman in 2017. Since then, the focus shifted to e-commerce. Made sense considering revenue from Croma's e-commerce channels have jumped by 5 to 6 times post-COVID. So they doubled down on selling iPhones and Sony TVs for cheaper prices to maximize returns. But the thing is, beneath it all, Croma is a good old-fashioned brick-and-mortar offline retailer to the core. Only 10 to 12% of its revenue came from online sales in 2024. Electronic retail is also a low-margin game, so the profits don't really spike very quickly. Offline retail also requires a sense of when to hold versus when to sell. Suppose Croma buys a phone at Rs 95 to sell at Rs 100, it'll get 5% margins. If it doesn't sell, it loses 95 rupees. If it sells, it earns only 5 rupees. To top it off, products have short life cycles courtesy of ever new releases. Now, Tata Digital didn't immediately grasp all of this. And as a result, many old systems were undone. Croma's private label is a very popular choice for its entry-level prices. Its TVs, kitchen appliances, and ACs have been fan favorites among bachelors and rental companies. But over the last 3-4 years, it was sidelined. Even its loyalty program was killed in 2021 to make way for new. But things are now changing yet again. Ironically enough, private labels are back on the drawing board. Tight budgets have also pushed Croma back to control pricing. Basically, it's back to square one. The digital-first investment also hasn't panned out yet. One HR executive recalled how, despite the investment in the Croma website, they haven't yet seen any outcomes. On the contrary, the leadership team is constantly getting complaints about poor service and user experience. Driving this flip-flop is Chroma's chief executive and managing director, Shibashish Roy, who acts as the channel for Tata Digital's experiments. More on that in the next segment. Ever since Roy took over as Croma CEO, his goal was to make Croma a new age brand. People in the know told us how he invested disproportionately in that direction. Under him, Croma sponsored the global dance music festival Sunburn in 2023. It changed its social media style from sales-oriented to influencer and trend-based content. It even made its website black. Croma was trying to reposition itself as a premium brand. But like everything else, there was some contradictions here too. Store locations, for instance, was one that came up during a town hall. Some employees wanted to know why multi-story Croma outlets were placed in the bylanes of small towns, where they argued no one was really interested in purchasing such products. Targeting the right demographic has actually been a recurring issue. The consistent lack of clarity and direction have left employees feeling jaded as a result, which is why attrition has been at an all-time high. Roy has a big role to play here. He's often the first person to jump into new initiatives. And that's despite the fact that employees doing the work end up being martyred. Work has become a game of passing the parcel. Roy is doing what Tata Digital wants him to do, and Tata Digital is doing what Tata Sons wants it to do. In the process, they have bled Chroma's business. Fierce competition from e-commerce players, high inventory holding costs, they've all trapped Croma in the red. Amid all that confusion, there's one thing all current and former employees seem to agree on. If the digital marketing team's integration into Tata Digital proves successful, it could be a step in the right direction.
Daybreak is produced from the newsroom of The Ken, India's first subscriber-focused business news platform. What you're listening to is just a small sample of our subscriber-only offerings. A full subscription unlocks daily long-form feature stories, newsletters, and podcast extras. Head to theken.com and click on the red subscribe button on the top of the website. Today's episode was hosted by Rahil Philippos and edited by Rajiv CN.